All right. Hey, everybody. Just kind of starting again. We were just sort of chit-chatting there. I've got Kate with me and Mark and Arib. Kate, why don't you say hi and tell everybody where you're at in the world?
Hi, my name's Kate Armstrong, and I'm an urban forager and gardener and was a farmer. And I'm here in Edgewater, Colorado, near Sloan's Lake. So that's why I do urban foraging now, living in the city. Lots and lots of stuff to eat. We're going to look at a few of them, even talk about some herbal antibiotics.
And by the way, everybody, because she's been there a while, that's a suburb of urban Denver. The reality is a lot of people would just call it Denver. You know, she's in a specific suburb of Denver. So, and Kate, tell us about how the virus has dealt with your life. What's it done for you over the last 3 months, let's say, 2.5 months at least?
Well, this is my very first spring foraging event, which is really unusual because I normally have already taught classes and taken people on weed walks, shown them what they can eat, what they can use for medicine, and why the spring greens are so important and what ones we want to look for. So this year, I'm simply gardening for people. And it's a definite social distance, hands off for them. You know, they wave to me from the house, hi. But gardening and doing people's yards is something that is considered to be an essential service because people are home all the time. So they want actually a lot more done in their yards. So that's what I'm doing.
Is it your sense that as a whole, people in the urban area you deal with are gardening more this year, feeling like it's important? Okay, good.
Very, very much more. We had our first composting event here in Edgewater. They've started up a curbside composting thing, which we didn't have before. And we've already gotten, I myself got 20 gallons of finished compost to put into my yards, and they had none left. Everything was gone. We went in, you know, we had a time slot. You go, you open your trunk, they set the buckets in, you know, so it's all safe. But this is beautiful because people are going to the farmer's market. People are getting deliveries of local foods. People are plugging into zero waste delivery of food, and a lot of it is coming right from our local area. This to me is a really big improvement.
Well, I just hope it persists. I hope the virus, we get a vaccine, we do whatever we need to do, and things by next year at this time are not hampered, but I hope we don't just forget and we continue to garden. So that's my desire. You know what we're going to do, everybody? I'm going to just do a little logistics for you. There's a bunch of you out there. Would you guys please, one, put some ones in the little question box if you're hearing and seeing us all right? We're going to pretty much do webcams today because Kate's going to show you a bunch of the plants she's talking about, and she's going to do it through her webcam. We got a bunch of ones, so everybody's hearing us fine, it looks like, and seeing us. And secondly, put in where you're at in the world. Just show us. And some of you are regulars, so I know where Alicia's at. I think I know where a couple of people, Durward, I think I know where you're at. But the rest of you, a lot of new people. So please put in, we got Alamosa, Colorado, Meg. So some of the things that you see today could be relevant for you. San Diego, I bet some of the things are relevant for San Diego, okay?
Definitely, yeah. Yep, I've actually done weed walks there.
We have upstate New York, so maybe there's some relevance there. Anyway, so I just want one more logistically, because I've been on 3 different hour-plus weed walks with Kate. She loves to get questions as she's going along, and she'll probably ask you guys some questions. So let your fingers do the talking on your computers and ask some questions. And if you want, if you push the little button that shows a hand like this, we'll unmute you and let you ask Kate directly live. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Kate. I'm just going to sit here and learn myself, because I learn so much every time that I'm with you. So,
oh, you're so sweet.
Go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to start with some things which are really everybody probably already knows. And we're talking, first of all, the dandelion here. And I've got a couple of different leaves, because some dandelion leaves, they don't all look the same. The way you tell specifically is that their little points here point back to the center of the plant. The plant is in a circle, a rhoseola, and these points on the leaves always point back to the plant. Now, when I was growing up, dandelions were some of the first things that came up in the spring, and we actually went out looking for them. The ones you can eat right out of the ground have not got a bud on them. They haven't had flowers yet. They don't have a bud, so they're not bitter. And the reason that we would do this fresh dandelion as soon as we could is because when we were growing up on a farm, by the end of February, March, in there, all you had left were shrivelly potatoes, shrivelly apples, things that had been salted, smoked, canned, frozen, dried. You didn't have any fresh food. So as soon as the dandelions came out, you went and picked them when they were really tiny, and you just ate them. And what it did was it cured the winter funk in your system. So when you're eating a lot of processed foods, dried foods, smoked foods, they tend to back up in your guts and kind of make a bit of a mess. So you do the dandelions, and it very gently tunes up your kidneys. It tunes up your large intestine, your small intestine. It is good for your liver, and it does it very gently. You just have to eat 1 or 2 little tiny leaves or plants a day, and it will clear out the winter funk easily, safely. It's also an absolutely amazing diuretic. If you use dandelion as a diuretic, you also do not have to have potassium. Most over-the-counter diuretics, you've got to take potassium with them because they're cleaning it out of your body, the potassium, and that makes your heart unstable. You use dandelion as a diuretic, and it gives you more potassium than you will pee out, to put it in the vernacular. So it's a really good thing to use. You don't need a prescription. You don't need to take extra things. They have it as dandelion tea, and it's a great thing to do. Now, I didn't find a dandelion flower out there only because they just mowed, okay? But the flower, which all of you know, if you pick it when it's flat open, not partly closed, not partly open, but really flat, it's very sweet. It's very tender. Kids will eat all the little yellow petals without any problem. It tastes like honey. It's a very, very sweet thing. And that's, of course, what they made dandelion wine out of. We're picking thousands of those big opened dandelion flowers. The dandelion root, as you probably have heard, is very good to be cleaned, roasted in the oven, roast it with your chicory root, a little burdock root, grind them up in your coffee grinder, and you can make a really good, nutritious, very nutritious hot drink. I'm not going to say coffee substitute. It's not. Coffee is coffee. This stuff is this stuff, but it's good. It's all right. Don't get it confused. Now, another wonderful thing that comes up that looks a lot like dandelion, but is not.
Kate, before you leave dandelions,
yes,
just because I think that people are skeptical about what you say about the sweetness of just the petals themselves and the flowers. But I can tell you, because Kate was with us last spring, probably about this time when we were covered with some brand new, and we had 25 or more people on the walk. Little kids were doing just like he said, were walking and trying to find them to eat them, just to show that it is legitimate. They're really sweet and good. And then a couple questions or comments. Alicia says she has read that dandelions have more vitamins than kale. Even is that? I mean, that, and kale's always spoken of.
Absolutely true. They not only have more vitamins than kale, they have more healing properties than kale. Kale is extremely good for the blood, like beets are. It's got vitamin K, it's got iron. Well, dandelion has that. It also has calcium. It has some plant protein, and it is amazing medicine. The reason there are dandelions here in this country is because those early explorers that came from Europe wouldn't leave home without it. They brought dandelion in the Hudson's Bay Company, the James Bay Company, the Mayflower had dandelions. None of these Europeans would come to this country without dandelions because they knew they were such a great survival food, such a great medicine, and a very safe source of both food and medicine. You can't go wrong with them. So we populated the Americas with dandelions. There weren't any here.
And one last question on dandelions, and then you move forward, is a comment, or Gail asks, can you roast the leaves and still have the value from them, from the nutritional, or do you know?
You can dry the leaves like in a dehydrator and maintain most of the value. But if you put them in a hot oven and roast them, you're going to get a lot of evaporation that will take away some of the water-soluble vitamins and minerals. So I suggest actually that you simply...
And you were just gone from an audio perspective. But anyway, you're good now. So I think you answered the question about, you were saying, go ahead and dry them, because if you dry them, you can use them for tea, right? You can soak them for othering. So.
And if you want to, you can even you can dehydrate them, but then you can put them into things, chop them up and put them in a soup, put them in a stew. They just about disappear, but it gives you the nutrition right in there. So some people don't like the taste of dandelion. I understand that. And what I do want to add is that if you take mature dandelion leaves, like these are, the bigger ones, they may be bitter. So what you do is you soak them in salted cold water, or you cook them in salted water and then throw away the water. And that will take the bitterness out. The salt helps neutralize the bitterness. And you just pour it away. So they can be used for pot herbs that way as well. Now, any more about dandelion? It's very
just one more, and then we'll move on. This is Gail again, and she actually, I think, maybe meant to ask this. What about the roots? If you roasted the roots rather than boiling them, would they maintain their nutritional quality?
Yes, particularly if you don't peel them. So, and you roast them in a low oven. The oven should be no more than 225. I like 200 actually. And you just leave them in there until they're nice and brown. If you've scrubbed them with a scrub brush really hard, you get all the dirt off, and then you grind them up to use them. And you will keep most of the nutrition that way.
Gail says, wonderful, thank you. So, all right, let's move on to the next one you were going to talk about.
All right, we are moving on to all the various lettuces that come up this time of year. Here we have Lachuga. It's one of the lettuces that we have here is another one that's a little bit smaller version. It doesn't matter if you use prickly lettuce or wild lettuce. They are, both of them, very nutritious. You can use them as greens, but more important than that, they have a white sap in them. When they have grown and they have their flower coming off the top, if you just break the stem, you can see all the white sap. Dandelion has it too, but theirs is a little bit different. You might be able to see the white coming off the end of that. Do you see it?
Yep.
It's pooling up.
Yeah.
Okay, that is actually one of the best painkillers there is this side of opium. These lettuces are also called opium lettuce. It's a nickname. It's not true. It's not opium. However, when you collect the sap and make it into a little concoction, it's one of the best painkillers and sleeping aids that we have that is not an opium or an opioid. And the reason that it was nicknamed opium lettuce is because it does almost as good a job as using opium, but you don't have any of the side effects. And so people are very excited about making their own painkiller and getting off opioids and using from wild lettuce. There's several varieties. They all look really alike and they all work equally well. You'll find them coming up almost everywhere now. There are hundreds out there. And on YouTube are some very good, what are they called? Lessons on how to make the preparation from these lettuces. It shows you step by step how to do it, so I'm not going to do it here. But these lettuces, Lachugas, this is where we get our ordinary lettuce from. They've just been bred to make heads or make leaf lettuce or different kinds. But most of these, and rocket is another one. Rocket, which is arugula, is a mustard. And that's another one that you can get in the wild. It tastes just like from the supermarket. If you ever grow it at home, you'll never be rid of it again. And you throw a little bit into salads. And when you pick them like that, they are so nutritious. They really are wonderful because they're a deep-rooted plant. They have this taproot that goes down. That taproot brings up trace minerals and trace chemicals that we ordinarily don't get with our garden plants because the roots aren't deep enough. Carrots, yes, but mostly no. So you've got an access to trace minerals that you don't ordinarily get because these things grow on land that nobody has tilled and that nobody has put poison on. So they are really soil helpers, they're garden helpers, and they're very, very good for you. We've gotten away from knowing about those things. So any questions about the wild lettuces? Miner's lettuce is in that group too, or the dandelions. What? I have one,
and I'm letting people type, so they might have more. I think it's a good time for you to do something that you do so well, because I know people who are out there who are going to go out and forage are going to ask this. How do I know if that little leafy thing I just pulled out is not poisonous? And because I don't know how to identify these plants, right. And I just don't have the knowledge that you have. So would you have a really good description about how to deal with that?
Okay, when you're going out and you're foraging for the first time, first of all, pick things you already know. Like that's why I start with dandelions and things like that. The second thing, though, is you're going to see, for instance, here's something that's really a nice little plant. It is a very tiny, tiny version. I can't get the camera right. There we go. A very tiny version of lamb's quarters, believe it or not. This contains all the nutrition of the main plant, but maybe you don't know. Is this lamb's quarter or not? I think it is. What do? The first thing you do is you take one leaf like this, and you just nip it with your teeth without biting it off, like that. And it makes little holes in it, you can see. And you feel it with your tongue, feel it with your lips. If there's no negative symptoms, in other words, the bad news is if your tongue goes numb, if your lips go numb, if it tastes terrible, if the juice is unpleasant, spit it out, clean out your mouth and forget it. That's a very good indicator your body doesn't want it. Whether it's poisonous or not, doesn't matter. The second thing you do is after you've nipped it, nothing happened, then you take a little bite and you just chew it right here in the front of your mouth, and then you take it back out because you want to wait and see. Does your tongue go numb? Does it hurt? Is it stinging? Any of those things means forget it. Don't eat it. Okay? It's really that simple. This tastes good. This is delicious. I'm just going to eat it. And it almost dissolves in my mouth because it's such a little baby plant. Now, the reason I'm getting these little baby plants instead of letting them grow up fully is because this little guy contains the nutrition that the big plant will eventually have. But it's in miniature form. It's like eating sprouts. We eat sprouts because of all the nutrition in them. Well, the same thing is true of these little spring greens. This is lamb's quarter. You can tell by the shape of the leaf. Oh, here it is. See that? And it has a little bit of a silvery shine on the back. You probably can just see it. It's a little tiny silvery sheen. Very, very classic of lamb's quarters. Nothing else has it. Now, the other thing you do is use your eyes. Look at the plant. Is this plant looking like a good, normal, healthy plant? Or does it have something weird about it? Is it too big or too small or too crumply looking? In that case, it's probably been sprayed and you don't want to go anywhere near it. You really do want to look for plants that look very good, not weird science. You can tell when they have sprayed a playground because you go on there and the dandelions are all like gnarly and all twisted and they're still growing. Their poisons really don't work either. They just poison us too. There's my preaching. We're done. Okay, so there are only 2 plants that I know of in Colorado. This doesn't go for the whole world, that you need to stay away from, and both of them are very easy to tell if you just pay attention. And these 2 plants are seriously poisonous, not just toxic, poisonous. The first one is called poisonous hemlock. This is not a tree. This is not the hemlock tree. This grows near water. It is a member of the parsley, carrot, parsnip, Queen Anne's lace family. It has feathery kind of leaves. It has a big flat umbel of flowers on the top, like Queen Anne's lace. And there is one way you can tell, and it is pretty certain, okay? First of all, number 1, don't eat anything you don't really know, really. Number 2, poisonous hemlock, when you break off a little bit of the leaf and crush it between your fingers and smell it, it'll turn your head. It's a terrible smell. I don't even know what smell it is, but it's not pleasant. And if you do the same thing to wild carrot, wild parsnips, wild parsley, it smells like the garden. It smells like a carrot. It smells like parsley. It's very pleasant. But hemlock is not. Hemlock is just horrible. And that's a good thing because it's extremely deadly. If you eat one bite of the root thinking it's a wild carrot, you have 10 minutes before you're dead, and there's no antidote. So stay away from anything you're not certain of that has that feathery look with the flat umbral. Just don't bother with it. Leave them alone. The other thing is called death camas. Now that pretty much says it all right there. It looks like a wild onion. It looks like wild garlic. We love picking wild onions and wild garlic. Now, there's a big difference. Again, it has to do with smell. If you can't smell, don't go alone for plants. Really, please. Because your nose is going to tell you things that you don't want to eat because it'll turn your head. You smell it? Pew, that's terrible. Death camas has no onion smell and has no garlic smell. So if you've pulled up a plant that looks like wild garlic or wild onion, first smell it. If you don't smell onion or garlic, put it down, wash your hands, and walk away, because that is probably death camas. They look just the same. It's just the smell that's the difference. So those are the two really poisonous plants. And I don't worry about harvesting wild plants where animals might have gone pee. I mean, you're going to wash the plants. That doesn't soak in. It's not like a sponge. You know, you can, if you can wash diapers, you can wash plants. It's, you know, there it is. I don't pick close to highways, but it's not for the reason you think. I don't pick close to highways because people throw all kinds of garbage out. Cars are too close to me. I don't like that. But they have found, much to my amazement, that when they tested plants along the roadside for high amounts of exhaust fumes and those kinds of hydrocarbons, they didn't find them. The plants are apparently cleaning the air. And I don't know where it's going, but it's not in the leaves. So you don't have to worry for that particular reason. But I think the cleaner, the better. I prefer going to a clean place. But I tell you, when I'm getting elderberries in the fall, I will pull off the highway and pull into a truck stop and pick them off of bushes right along the parkway there, because those little berries are worth it. And they, now I know they're not contaminated. I'm very happy with that. So let me think. The only other thing that I tell people in the Denver area is look up your the maps that indicate where there are super sites. Super sites in Denver are about, there was a smelter, a gold smelter in Globeville. Everything downwind of that smelter is full of arsenic and lead and mercury and all of these volatiles that went in the air, and they had to take out 3 feet of dirt, and because it was so contaminated, and it doesn't go away. So unfortunately, eating long grain rice from the southern United States, if it has been grown on cotton land, it has arsenic in it, because that's what they used as a pesticide for the boll weevil. So if they're now growing rice on old cotton land, you've got arsenic in your rice. Another reason I like foraging. I know what I get. I think that's about covered it. Wayne, can you think of anything I missed?
No,
okay.
If anything, you hit even a few more things. Let's see, a couple more questions real quick. So this is Gail again, back to the dandelions. She says, okay, roast the leaves. Is that as beneficial as the leaves or different? Is it a different kind of benefit that you'd get from dandelion leaves, let's say, versus the dandelion root that had been roasted?
Yes, very different, actually. The dandelion root is your source for inulin, which is a very beneficial type of sweetener that's in plants. It is a good source for plant protein. It's a good source for plant calcium, whereas the leaves are more about being a diuretic, vitamin C, vitamin A, B, lots of different vitamins that may be in trace amounts in the root, but the root has more of the things that are storage items, because of course the root is where it stores all the food for the plant for the next year. So they're different, but they're both beneficial. Let me see if I can even give you a better idea here. I brought all my books. This book, by the way, was a complete surprise to me. The Reader's Digest, Complete Illustrated Book of Herbs, 2011. And this book has in it how to grow them, how to identify them, how to eat them, how to make deodorant, dish soap, household cleaners, how to recipes, sachets. It's really the whole thing. So here I just opened it random, and we have here body scrubs and splashes. That's just one of many, many things. But in here, under Dandelion, here we have it. What they do is they give you a full page of the dandelion and what it does, and it includes what you can find in it. So the root is utilized to stimulate action in the digestive system. It promotes bile secretion and is a valuable remedy for many liver and gallbladder conditions. What that says to me is get the ground up. I have dandelion root, I have dandelion leaves, I have tea. You can make tea out of both of them. And you can get to the point where just by smelling it and holding it in your hand, your body will tell you, use this, use that, or use them both. And if you start trusting your own instincts, go to your heart, go to your body, talk to your body, it'll tell you. And I'm a good example of that. When I go out and start foraging, it's very interesting to me what I see and what I pick and what I eat, because it tells me what's going on inside my own body. And that's valuable information. So let me see where it says, I was hoping it would tell me all the different vitamins here, but it's not. It must be a different book. Let me show you while we're doing books. Here's another one. This is Linda Kershaw. Very, very good book. Go to the library if you want to do this kind of thing and take out a handful of books, look at them, see what one you like. They're all different. They don't all give you the same thing. And you may find, oh, I want this one, but I don't like that one. So here we have our next little plant, which I'll show you. The leaves on this are very tiny. It is a member of the mustard family. And let me see if I can get against my black shirt, maybe. This whole thing is backwards, Wayne, sorry. There you go. Can you see the little seeds? They're triangular shaped or heart shaped. This is called shepherd's purse. It's a type of mustard green. All of it is edible. And just like the rest of the mustards, and as I said, arugula is also a mustard, these are very good greens to eat, to mix with others. When you're first foraging and you're first getting greens to eat, please don't eat more than about 25% wild greens combined with the normal lettuces that you eat, because they are strong. And it isn't that they will hurt you, but I made a mistake. I cooked a whole mess of dock for myself. Dock is very tasty. And I ate it, and I spent the next day in the bathroom because it cleaned me out. I was nice and clean, but maybe a half a portion would have been enough. So there's your caveat. It won't hurt you, but it could be life-changing for the next day. And here, the medicine for shepherd's purse, they are rich in vitamin C, stimulate urination, stop bleeding, relieve earaches and headaches, stomach cramps, hemorrhoids, internal bleeding, especially bleeding of the uterus or kidneys. It was traditionally used during childbirth to stop bleeding and aid delivery of the afterbirth. So you don't want to use it if you're pregnant, not until you get to the part where you've already delivered, because what it does is cause uterine contractions. That's what stops the bleeding, and that's what gets the uterus to contract so that the bleeding stops. So this is one where you don't use it if you're pregnant. Okay? It grows everywhere. It's really, really, and here's a nice little thing here. The U.S. National Cancer Institute reports that these plants may help to prevent cancer. In animal experiments, shepherd's purse extracts have been shown to speed healing of stress-induced ulcers, fight chemically induced inflammation, increase urination, lower blood pressure, inhibit contractions of the heart, etc. So that's a little tiny plant everybody has in their yard. And it's a real good one. And that, again, this from this book, Edible Medicinal Plants of the Rockies. And we have one of my favorite people who wrote these books, Michael Moore. He's probably got one for almost every section. This one is of the mountains in the West. He's got the Pacific Northwest. He's got the desert in the Southwest. And his books are awesome. However, unfortunately, you really need to know something about plants in order to use it, because basically, oh, good. I turned right to Hawthorne. I want to tell you about Hawthorne. He has a lot of writing. There's a lot of description. You've got those sorts of things, and you've got pen and ink drawings. So it's pretty difficult, unless you know plants, to decide, is it this plant? Is it that plant? So this is more of a experienced person book. Better to have the one I just showed you, because this one they've got really nice pictures. So coneflower, black-eyed Susan, and so forth. It's easier to identify, and they have it food, medicine, other uses, description, and then down in the bottom in the pink box, warnings if you need to have a warning about something or a look-alike about something. So I really like using these books. Now, let me see here. I'm going to give you something that's really a little unusual. You're going to be surprised at this. Here we have bindweed. Ooh, blah, bindweed. Wrong. You know what? You take off the end that's growing right here. Salad. It's not bitter. It's not bad tasting. And if you ate the ends off of these, they would stop growing so well. The other part is the flowers, the little flowers on bindweeds. It's a morning glory plant. Taste slightly spicy and slightly sweet, and they're absolutely delicious. Once I show my grandkids, try this flower, they go running all over the place to try the flower. Well, that cuts down on bindweed too. It's a nice thing to do. So don't ignore this as a source of food. And we already talked about the whole lamb's quarters. They're excellent this time of year. The tinier you can get them, the better. And there. Okay, now, while I still have some time, because this is the time of COVID-19, I am going to tell you a little bit about herbal antibiotics. Now, this book, Stephen Harrod Booner wrote it. He also has the natural alternatives for treating drug-resistant virus. This is the bacterias. There's also the viruses. But what I like is that there's a list in here, the top 15 antibiotic herbs. And I'm not going to say all of them because you don't know most of them. But the ones I'm going to tell you, you already know about, and they're quite interesting. Aloe, we know about aloe. Echinacea, garlic, ginger, golden seal, grapefruit seed extract, honey. People forget about honey. You know, one little comment. They grew seeds that they found in the Egyptian tombs that were preserved in honey. 3,000 years old. They still were viable. They grew them, okay? Part of them were marijuana. How do you like that? It's an old herb. Juniper, licorice, sage. Now, I know you've got most of those in your house or in your yard or somewhere close by. This is a great time to go online to look up things like this because they're simple. They're simple to make. Look at this cover. This, I'll do the other side. This is St. John's wort. And Wayne, I need some more St. John's wort. I think I took some from your house. You have it wild, and it died when I moved. So I need some more St. John's wort, okay? Yeah, I'll come out and get it. And then, of course, Echinacea is right here. And that's the angustifolia, I think. There's purpurea and angustifolia. These things are so simple, so simple. Basically, you drop the part of the plant, usually the flower or the leaf, sometimes the root. You put it into Everclear alcohol if you want to extract just the oils and the things that are in it. You boil it and drink it like tea if you just want a mild solution. You can use vegetable glycerin and make it into something that is thicker so it can be on a spoon, or you can use honey. Honey is amazing for being able to be flavored, being able to take on the various medicinal qualities of these plants. And I don't know anyone who doesn't like honey. I know some people who can't have it, but yeah. And since it's spring and since we're talking about medicines, if you're a person who is allergic to pollens, springtime, summertime, ragweed, all of those things, get some local raw honey from as close to your house as possible and start taking a teaspoonful every day, starting in January. And people have told me, and you can read the results too, that it will take away up to 90% of their symptoms because that honey has a little bit of pollen in it, and that little bit of pollen starts telling your immune system, okay, we have to watch out for these things, and it helps you become immune. So there's a little hint for you too. Now we've only got about 15 minutes left, so I really want to open it up to people who have questions. I've only scratched the surface here. If you have questions about a plant, I got enough books I can even look up the answer for you. So
I've got one I'll start with, and there's two more we already have, and I'm sure people will type in a bunch more. You mentioned dock. In our part of the world right now, dock is so prolific. I mean, it's just, it seems like it grows 6 inches a day. Is that the case probably throughout North America, or at least northern? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So what is the right amount of dock to eat so that you don't end up totally cleaning yourself out like you described?
Well, I actually would start by taking one dock leaf that was about that long, 2 feet long, maybe. I mean, those dock leaves will grow up to 3 feet long. They're huge. So take one maybe a foot long. We'll call that. And cut the rib off the back just enough so it's not bumpy. You don't want to cut the leaf. Then wash it, spread down egg salad, tuna fish salad, hummus, guacamole, and then roll it up into a nice green wrap and eat that for lunch. You know, it's really good. Now, there are 2 different flavors for dock. One of them is Rumex crispus, and that is the yellow dock, curly dock, and they just have a very mild flavor, maybe a little tiny bit salty, but nothing big. And then the other one is Rumex acetosa, and that's the one that's also called French sorrel. And it is a very lemony kind of a taste because of oxalic acid. So it is a flavoring for soup. The French make a delicious soup out of it called Bonne Femme. And you can use that also for wraps. The only caveat is if you have any trouble with stones, kidney stones, gallbladder stone, any of the stones, including gout, actually, you should not be eating it raw. Steam it. And it doesn't take much steaming. You just want to really get it hot through. It is as quick to cook as spinach. So one of the things I ran into when I was first trying it, I cooked it too long and it turned into some horrible gelatinous bleh. I threw it away. It wasn't worth bleh. It was terrible. One of the things about dock is it is mucilaginous. And when you have a plant that's mucilaginous, you can squeeze it and get that juice out, and it can go on a burn the way aloe does if you don't have any aloe around, and it will help seal it and keep it from hurting until you can get somewhere to do something better. So, and dock is everywhere. You can use dock for bandages. You can use dock to just eat it raw. It's a great little plant, and just don't overdo it. That's all.
All right, well, we're getting lots of questions, so let me just start with somebody that we haven't had before. Dan asks, are the stems of dandelions edible?
I wouldn't bother, but you can give them to your kids and they're a straw. They're totally hollow, and my grandkids use it for a straw with their juice or their milk. You know, it's fun.
Cool.
No, I wouldn't eat them.
Erica asks, and it's just a real simple, what about plantain?
I love plantain. I was so excited because 2 days ago I saw my first plantain up, and it's like, oh goody, here they are. Plantain, Plantago majora and Plantago lanceolata. Lanceolata has long skinny leaves. Plantago's leaves are roundish, and they both have very straight ribs on the back. It's definitive. There aren't many plants that have straight parallel ribs on the back of the leaf. And so you can do that. If you are out in a situation and you get a bee sting, you get a mosquito bite, you get a rash, a cut that isn't a deep cut, and you have any plantain, brush off the dirt, chew it in your mouth, and make what's called a spit bolus, and just put it right on the bee sting or the mosquito bite or the rash. It starts healing it right away. It's anesthetic, it's antiseptic, it's mucilaginous, and it will pull. It's a pulling herb, which means if the stinger got stuck in there and you put it on, it will pull it out. So
would it do the same thing for a sliver? You know, you get a sliver in the finger and you have to wait for it to get infected usually, and then it'll pop out.
Yeah.
But put that
if you don't have Epsom salts, you could use plantain, definitely. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to keep running here because you're starting to get lots of questions. Apple cider vinegar and honey. Any thoughts?
Oh boy. I actually use apple cider vinegar as a mouthwash because I have a very alkali mouth and I have to cut down on the plaque and so forth. Apple cider vinegar has been around as long as there's been apples, and it is a fabulous toner for the body. A tablespoon a day, some people take. What was the next ingredient? Apple cider vinegar and what?
Honey. I think just combining with honey.
Oh,
Maybe to take
yeah, you just combine them. The honey makes it taste better. Honey is good for you always. A honey slide for a sore throat is amazing. It can calm a cough. And generally, those two items are just really good for your body. And also, if you want to use good cleaning, I use white vinegar and a few drops of lavender oil or rosemary, and there's recipes out there for that. I haven't found any difference in cleaning when I make my own products. They're good.
Very early on, someone asked this question. I'm not going back to it, so I might not get it exactly right. But by the way, if you guys want to come on live, just kind of raise your hands and we'll let you ask your question live. But this question was, wild found acorns. He said, I've read somewhere where they're poisonous, and I've read other places where they're very good for you. So wild found, not treated. Can you eat them raw? I think is the question.
You can. Some of them are absolutely dreadful raw, and some of them are very, very tasty raw. It depends on the oak tree. You have to try one. There is an oak locally in this neighborhood at my daughter's house where you can literally pick them up off the ground and eat them, and they're not even bitter. It's amazing. They are one of the best acorns I've ever had. If you want to use acorns that are bitter, you have to grind them up. You have to do things with them, or they're really not palatable. But they won't hurt you. They're not bad for you. They're just don't taste very good unless it's a good acorn and it's been treated appropriately. If you, again, go to YouTube, you can read up on it. It'll give you everything you need to know to make acorn flour. People make pancakes with it, bread. Yeah.
How about remember I have this little grove of honey locust trees, and this time of the year, you start to see the ones that were just dropped during the winter, and there's the honey locust seeds in those pods. How would those be prepared, and what value could they have for you? Same thing,
I think I
make
have
the
to look
flour
that
out of
one
it?
up, Wayne. I don't know offhand. I do know mesquite beans and seeds are simply ground up and used. They've been used for thousands of years. I am not sure about honey locust seeds myself, although I do think that they use them for animal food.
How about wild strawberries? Alicia asks.
Oh my
Any problems
gosh.
with them? Or are they fine?
No, they're tiny. They're teeny tiny, but they are the best strawberries you'll ever eat in your life. If they don't have a lot of flavor and it looks like the seeds are on the outside, they're not wild strawberries. They're probably squawberries. So they're edible too. They're not, but they don't taste as good. The wild strawberries are the most flavorful, wonderful things in the whole world.
So here's Anthony, new person asking. I appreciate all you guys. Good for the questions. I eat lots of Biden's Alba and Florida Betony. Any thoughts? I don't know those, so it's not going to be helpful from me.
I'm not Is he from Florida?
He must be. He's not somebody who's one of the regulars. Anthony, would you put in here whether you're from Florida? Is that where you get these?
If you're from Florida, Anthony, I suggest you go on the YouTube and look for the weed guy, Green Dean. Green Dean lives in Florida. He gives all of his foraging programs from Florida. He's got hundreds online, and he probably will have one on the things you're asking about, but I'm not familiar enough with them to want to talk about them without looking them up.
And he does say he's from Pensacola, Florida. So
yeah, go
that's
Green
a great
Dean.
suggestion. Green Dean.
Dean.
All right. Come on, guys. We've got, your timing's great. We have 3 minutes. We can
3
go longer.
minutes.
Oh, wait. So people are typing. So Anthony says, I know of him. The weeds I noted are wonderful. I eat them all year. So that's the other thing that, almost everything we talked about was so seasonal. We just don't find dandelions. Once dandelions are here in Colorado, they're gone. We don't see them in the year. You mentioned something about hawthorn. You were going to say something about hawthorn.
Yes.
And then Kale asked, what about purslane?
Oh, yum. Purslane is one of my all-time favorite plants. It has more omega-3 fatty acids than any other plant. It can be eaten raw. It can be pickled. It can be turned into relish. It can be used in soups. And it will even thicken soups if you have enough in it because it's a little bit mucilaginous. Purslane is something that is grown in almost every country except America as a vegetable plant. So when some Bhutanese refugees came here, they turned a whole bed into nothing but purslane and took it home every night and sauteed it with whatever they had. And I started doing that. It's absolutely delicious. So don't overlook purslane. It's a garden marvels. I even use it to help mulch tomatoes and peppers and eggplants because it keeps the ground moist and you can just cut it off when it gets too big. Very shallow rooted. It's a great plant. And then we'll go to hawthorn because we're about out of time. So hawthorne berries, hawthorn preparations are blood pressure equalizers. If your blood pressure is too high, it will bring it down. If your blood pressure is too low, it will bring it up. It's been used for thousands of years in order to regulate blood pressure, and there's still nothing better. It doesn't harm any system in your body, and it just normalizes your blood pressure. So it's a fabulous plant. You can get that at any of the natural food stores.
And where hawthorn would be native, what time of year? Would that be late summer or early fall when the berries would be ready?
Yeah, late summer. Yeah. It grows very well in Colorado.
Well, Gail just came in and said she eats the plantain or purslane raw and enjoys that. But let's go ahead and call it for now. I've already committed Kate to one thing. She's going to come out next winter and on a cold day where it's no snow around, and we're going to look and see what we find then. But I get the sense, if Kate's willing to come back, that maybe even in late summer or early fall, she could tell us about the urban side again, not she could have gone out the day before, or maybe by that time I could go up there with her and I'll have a camera and we could do it live while she's picking some things.
Ooh, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And then we can get the sense at least of what's going to happen in the summer fall time frame. So if you guys enjoyed this, would you put some ones in? That's kind of our applause, and I'm going to do it live. I'm going to applaud, and I see a bunch of ones coming in. Oh wow, lots of them. And
hey, Wayne,
Kate, any last words?
Yeah, if anyone wants to contact me for questions that they've only just thought up, what's the best way to do that, Wayne?
We'll send out what you tell us. We've got your contact, both your phone and your email. Is email best? We'll just send it out to everybody.
I would say I actually do better with texts.
Okay, so if you'd send us your cell number, we'll just send it out in a text and have people say they can respond to you by text. That'd be great.
And go ahead and send the email also. It's just during the summer, I'm outside so much, I'm not on my computer as much.
Well, we'll do both those things. Again, you guys have been an awesome audience. Boy, everybody stayed almost through the whole thing, which is amazing. We just don't get that very often. Remember, folks, we still have several other very, very new, in the near future webinars. We have Song and Joe tomorrow for a question and answer about their remediation technology. And we have Dave Rozier and Jerry Peliquin on Friday about indoor agriculture. And we're just going to keep them coming. Those webinars coming. So we'll do that. Anything last from you, Kate, before we sign off? Mark, any questions?
Thank you, Wayne. You're a treasure.
Oh, you are. You're the treasure. Mark, anything from you or Reeb?
Yeah, those
Sounds like they're probably muted.
right. I was muted, but the plants, Kate, that was amazing. The things you showed. I've seen them around my house or in the park, but I didn't know I could eat them, and I could even get intoxicated by some of them. That's cool.
All right.
And yeah, everything what you showed, I think I have a garden. I have a small little garden, but I never gone in and eat something. But now I will try. Let's see what happens. If I do not show up next day, Wayne, it was poisonous basically.
Well, just let me know, Reeb. I'll help you out.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, Mark, why don't you take us out? Everybody else, thank you so much again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.